Hello everyone, this is Malki Assad, and today we're discussing networking tips for residency applicants with Dr. Madhu Venikandam. Welcome Dr. Madhu to the channel.
Thank you, Dr. Asad, for having me again. Really excited again to talk about another important topic, which is networking.
That's awesome. And I want to start by asking you about how applicants can start networking in the field as American medical students in their first, second, third year, or international medical graduates who are starting in a totally new system for them.
Yeah, I think networking is very, very important, especially in this era of social media and internet where everything is available online. And also during COVID, it's even more important because everything's virtual. Networking is very important because it helps you in multiple areas, be it your research, be it your career, be it your application. You learn a lot of things. And also in general, you can find like-minded people in your community. How to go about it is, I think if you are currently at a medical school program in the United States, you can try connecting with your mentors or your attendings and ask them if there are people that they know who is working on interests similar to yours and network that route. And a lot of American medical graduates, they're either part of a fraternity or a sorority or they're AOA. So those are all avenues that you can utilize. For international graduates, now in the setting of COVID, it's mostly online. Again, if you had a rotation, you can try and communicate with your co-rotators, with your preceptors, and work your networks that way. So that would be a good approach to start.
That's awesome. And in your opinion, what are the deal makers and deal breakers in networking with faculty and residents?
So deal makers and deal breakers, these are the two words I often like to use because deal breakers are the things that happen when you don't communicate the right way that can literally end your network right away. And if you communicate the right way, your network will continue and you can potentially benefit from those networks. And one thing that I always tell my students is a lot of the times it's not about entirely what you say, but it's how you say it. And of course, sometimes the content of what you say also matters. So it's a combination of telling the right things and explaining it in a polite and acceptable manner. Another thing that I want to emphasize is we have applicants from all around the world, uh, and it's not about the accent. It's about how effectively you can communicate. You can still have your native accent uh, and speak English and communicate very, very well and be an amazing networker. And on the other hand, your native language could be English and you can be a poor networker. So your networking ability has nothing to do with your accent. You just have to be understandable to the other person and you just have to know what are the right things to say. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty details of, in my experience, what are the deal makers and the deal breakers. Uh, the deal makers always think about how people think in the country you're applying to. In our case, we're talking about the US. Here, people have a high emotional quotient and also they value privacy a lot. So in your communication, you have to be mindful of other people's space and other people's emotion. So if you come off as compassionate and relatable to them, and you come off as a person who respects the other person's space, you grab their attention and that's a deal maker, and then you can build your communication from there. Now, what are the deal breakers? Asking personal questions right away through text or a person you just met, or not addressing the person with due respect the first message you send them. For instance, a lot of residents and students send messages to people through social media. So if you haven't met that attending or that person that you're trying to network with, try to always go with the last name and address them as doctor if they're a physician, if they're a non-physician, Mr., and their last name. And if they're comfortable with you calling them by their first name, they'll tell you. And for example, when I was texting Malke, it started as Dr. Assad, and then you transition to Malke. He calls me Madhu, I call him Malke. And that's the comfort that we, will tell each other if we're okay with it. So I would say wait for that. If you don't do that, sometimes that can turn sour and can be a deal breaker. Also, another thing is, we're all competitive by nature, and that's why we're here and applying. But you have to channelize it in the right way. So don't ask questions like, "Oh, what were your scores?" or how many attempts did you have, or how many programs. If you haven't met them at all and they hardly know you, don't ask these specific questions. However, if you want to get a sense of what type of scores are acceptable for a particular specialty, you can ask them things like, what do you think in your experience are the score ranges that most programs take? For instance, Malki, I know you are interested in plastic surgery and, in my case, gastro. So if someone wanted to know what score range it is, if someone asked me, oh, what do you think are the range of scores that are acceptable to most programs that take people for internal medicine or gastroenterology, people will give you an answer. That would be a more polite approach, and that is a good and right way to talk. And in terms of attempts, rather than asking the particular person whether or not they had attempts, it would be better to ask, do you know people in your program that have taken candidates with attempts, or is that something that many programs would consider? So you see how you can get the same answer by, rephrasing the question in a polite way, and that will not offend people. Another thing that is a big no-no is asking about student loans, debts, financial situations. These are all sensitive topics. So instead of that, if you want to know how to manage your finances through your training, a good question to ask would be, does your program offer financial education classes? Or if we needed to know how to manage finances, are there personnel available in your program that we can talk to? So you never know, if you are polite like this, you'll be surprised. People will actually open up about their personal stories. So unless they voluntarily tell you about their personal stories, you have to give them their space and wait. And that also applies to your marital status, whether or not you have kids, or what type of person you're with or like. These are all very sensitive personal questions. Don't ask them. If they're comfortable in telling you, they will tell you.
That's a great point. You mentioned that you can get the same information by rephrasing the question about the program in general rather than them personally.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's very important because, sometimes if you tell the right things, you never know, you can get opportunities and they will, help you. And sometimes that's how you will get certain opportunities, be in terms of getting a new research mentor or getting publications done or finding new mentors, or even sometimes getting interviews or knowing of interviews that you never know existed.
Another important aspect of communication and networking is the frequency of communication. So if let's say you emailed a resident or faculty trying to network and they did not respond, how often should you send the email again? How far? Next day, next week, next month? What's your thoughts on that?
I think, next day is too quick, I would say. A lot of the times people are really caught up with their own work and they might be setting aside time to answer emails. So I would say give it at least a week, because, give them some time to process and read through all the emails, at least a week or two, and then you can send a follow-up, which would be appropriate. And after two follow-ups, if they don't respond, I would say give it some more time. And then if they don't respond, that is clear signal that they probably don't want to commit or respond. And in the same time, try to see who else is available in the community with similar interests, and try to approach new people to build newer networks.
Yeah. Or if you have mentors who know these people, it's always better if they reach out to them if you need something specific from them. But I agree with you, maybe 2 weeks is an appropriate timing, because sometimes we get frustrated that somebody does not respond to the email. It doesn't mean that they don't want to respond. It might mean that they're busy, they forgot they wanted to respond and then they forgot. That happens to me
Yeah,
sometimes. So I think a follow-up email 2 weeks apart, and
yeah,
maybe a third. I usually don't send after the second, I stop. But if you want to send the third and afterwards, I think you should stop, because that's,
yeah.
as you said, a clear signal that they don't want to respond.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And also another valid point that you brought up is if there are mentors of yours that know this attending, if you know of that, rather than sending the first email, if you have a good relationship with your mentor, you can reach out to them and see if they can help you connect this attending to you. So that would be a good approach to start with and then take it from there.
That's awesome. How do you think networking can help you achieve your goals?
So, in order to have your networks help you, the first and foremost important thing is you have to be clear in your head what goals you want to achieve. So, first, you have to be clear what are you intending out of this network, and then you can start finding people who can potentially help you through that. So a lot of the common things that people want to achieve is one, increase their amount of publications, or if they have research interest in a particular field and they want to find people who have similar interests or are working on similar papers. So if that's your goal, then you have to find people and ask them that specific question. Second thing is if you want to know how to write a good personal statement or how to prepare for interviews, then look in the community who is doing work related to that and try to network for that. Or if you like a particular program and you want help with interviews or even trying to see if you stand a chance in a particular program for an interview or see what type of candidates they accept, you can try to network with current fellows or attendings and ask them uh, if your profile matches something that they're hiring. And don't ask them, can you give me an interview? That is a big no-no. That comes off as very brash and very unpolite. But you can, of course, ask them to review your CV uh, and say, do you think this could be a potential profile? And sometimes if that is not the profile, they'll tell you, our program is more like a clinical investigator track. Your profile looks more like a clinical educator or a more predominantly clinical track. Maybe this may not, you should probably try and apply to more community-based program. If not, they'll say, oh, it looks like you have significant amount of research. Yeah, this is like a program that takes candidates with your similar profile. We encourage you to apply. So those will be the type of responses that they give you. That doesn't mean that they're going to take you. That just means that they have taken people of your caliber and it's, encouraged that you should apply.
Yeah, I love the idea that you first know your goals. Why are you sending this email or this message first, and then align your email to with that? Because sometimes I feel some people just send communications or emails without specific purpose, and especially when people are busy, they're unlikely to respond to emails that they can't help with or can't offer anything from.
Yeah. And also, I would say follow up with people. Um, one of the instances that I can tell you is when I was doing my step to CS preparation, one of the residents that helped me prep for CS was a resident who matched a particular program. And after CS, I left back, but I was still in follow up with that person. I had nothing to gain because I didn't know even I was applying or coming to the US. But I followed up with him, just checked on him to know how he's doing, how the process is going. So by the time when I decided to apply, even without me asking, he told his program, I think this is a great candidate. She has good networking skills. And I ended up getting an interview in that program. So sometimes being kind and following up with people without expecting anything in return can also help you because it shows who you are.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I did electives and then I did 2 years of research and I kept in contact with the people I did electives with. And I assume if I did not, I might have not gotten an interview from them. So the
Yeah.
fact that you're keeping in touch with them, not only asking for things, but just telling them about your progress
Yeah.
can go far away.
Yeah.
So my final question for today's episode is, what are the platforms that applicants can use in order to reach out to people?
Yeah, this is very, very important, especially in the era of virtual communication. Social media plays a very, very huge role in networking. As you know, interpersonal interactions are limited. So the main two professional platforms where people solely post things, mostly professional, are LinkedIn and Twitter. They are the two professional platforms. However, the other common platforms are Instagram and Facebook. Facebook sometimes not so much, but I would say the three important would be Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, where you can actually find people that you can network with. And an important way and reason is because you can use hashtags and try to find who are the people who posted under that hashtag, and then you can curate those to find specific people that you can try to network with. For example, if you talk about ACP or GI, if you say GI Twitter, there'll be tons of posts that comes in, and then you can find attendings or residents or fellows under that who post, and then you can see if the work that they have done is something that is interest of you. And if there's something else that you would like to research, or if you would like help with personal statement or application, you can use specific hashtags to see who's out there, who's producing content in that line, and then you can try to reach out and communicate with them. And a lot of the times that's very, very helpful. So I would say make yourself visible in these social media platforms. Try to keep it real. It's not that you only post pictures of your application profile. No, you can have a little bit of your personal touch too. If you are interested in something, or interested in my case, I'm interested in traveling and hiking and exploring new cuisines. So in my social media, it's public. I add some pictures because about what I do or explore outside of medicine, that makes you human. So when you try to network with a person, obviously they're going to check your profile. And if it looks too scripted, you don't come off as a genuine person. So keep it a little bit real, and at the same time, focus on your goals, and be specific with what you want to achieve and how you want to connect with them.
When would you recommend using the email versus social media to network with people?
So if you have the email of the person, sometimes when you go to their social media profiles, they will have an email section where their email is public. That essentially means that they're okay with you directly emailing, and that is probably the first line of communication that they expect you to take. So in that case, you can email them. But if you don't have an email of the person available, you can send them a message, a direct message asking what would be the best way to contact you. I think keeping an open-ended question and asking the person what is the best way of communication to reach them would be the best way to know whether an email or a message or even a phone call would work.
And I feel that the goals of an email is different than, for example, following somebody on Twitter or Instagram. If you have something specific that you won't need from them, maybe email is the most formal way. But if you just want to follow their work, know what they're doing, and in the future, in case you needed something from them, you can use the email to ask about specific thing. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a fair and a genuine point. I think I agree with that. And also, in line of that, another thing that I want to say is if you want to send something very, very long with multiple bullet points that you want to talk about, an email would be best, because nobody wants a long paragraph in their inbox and DM. It's very difficult to read it through the phone. So I think if you want to send like a long letter with PDFs or attachments of your resume, or if you want someone else to review, let's say your personal statement or your CV, an email would be more appropriate than sending attachments to their direct message.
Definitely. Those were really great points. Dr. Madu, do you have any final thoughts on the networking tips and use of social media to network with people?
I think my final thoughts to sum it up would be very proactive, because if you wait, you might miss the opportunity. So I would say be very proactive in reaching out to people, but at the same time, in between communication, give enough space, like at least 2 weeks would be appropriate. And also try to ask questions without coming off as too nosy. Try to be polite and respectful, and build familiarity with time. Give the other person the chance to express what they're comfortable with, and that way you can build the rapport and familiarity with them incrementally. And be very specific with your goals, and try to make it easy for them to help you. The more specific and the more you have clarity in expressing yourself, the more easy it is for the other person to see if they can help you out or not. So I think that's the most effective way of networking.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mado. These were amazing points about networking and social media, especially with the rise in social media use and the increasing importance of networking for all medical specialties.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm glad, I had this platform to talk to you about this, and it was so much fun, uh, you know, being in the session and talking about it. And I hope people who are watching this find this very useful.
Awesome. For our viewers, if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below. If you like the video, subscribe to my channel and follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Malk Assad. Thank you all so much for watching and see you in future videos.